Hello and welcome to all DAZ users in this presentation concerning tips on how to use the fake volumetric light included in my product Crime Scene Analysis. In this product you will find many morphable props and many material options for these props, okay? In order to transform any DAZ and poser environment in a crime scene. So let's go in the props. You have different type of flashlight. You have the single flashlight. I'm going to create a new scene. You have the single flashlight. Let's watch it on a white background. Okay, we see it better. Okay, with different material options that I'm going to take there. You can fake, oh, I have to select it. You can fake the fact that it's emitting light. Let's have a very fast render, okay? And a blue light or a white light. Okay, but my problem when I developed this thing is that I really wanted to have a kind of volumetric light. You know, this is this kind of light that can be seen in the environment when you see the beam. I tried a lot of things on DAZ Studio to obtain this effect, but it was very complicated to obtain a real volumetric light. That's why I created a prop here, which three props actually, which are three fake volumetric lights. I'm going to delete this one and load one of them. Here you see the blue beam of the light. And what I want to present you today is how to use this efficiently in your scenes. Now, what are volumetric lights? Volumetric lights, here if I write in Google volumetric light and go in images, you have plenty of these volumetric lights. These are these beams of lights that you see, but what is the common thing between these different images? It is that it is always or almost always over a dark background. Generally, it's actually the contrast of the light coming from a lamp or from a window in a dark environment. My light will allow you also to see the beams in clear and shiny and full of light environments. But if you want really to be realistic, these lights are seen generally only in dark environments. That's why the presets I made are made to be seen in a dark environment. All right. If you have a look at the definition in Wikipedia, okay, of volumetric lighting, you know it is a lighting effect to see the beam of light shining through the environment. It's like for sunbeams, but it can be actually for also flashlight lamps held in someone's hand. Okay, now if I have a look, indeed, when I am in a clear environment with a clear background, you don't see the light very well. Here, if I change the background color for a gray, for instance, you see the light very, very much better. So now what is this light made of? If you go on the scene, you see that the object flashlight is the parent. Here you have a prop called fake cone light, and you have also a blue spotlight with the angle of the spotlight corresponding to the angle of aperture of the fake cone light. This is not only one single cone, this is actually much more, 18 or 19 cones in space. It's wire texture shaded here, okay. So you see all these cones the prop is made of. One of my first advice here, we are not working in a scene, but if you are working in a scene, I would advise you to make it not selectable. Otherwise, in a scene, as it takes a huge space in the environment, you will spend your time clicking somewhere and finding it. So if you have problem with your thing, because when you want to select something, you always select that, toggle it unselectable this way, and you have no more problem. You can click, 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 nothing happens, but you can still select, okay, your lamp, and everything as it is parented to the lamp will follow. Now I'm going to toggle it selectable once again. Okay, selectable. With this you can also shape. You see, you can shape your beam. For instance, you want a longer beam, or you can shape also the beam in the other directions, but for this I'm going to go in parameters to have the same scale in X and Y. For instance, 50% and 50%. Okay, and now your angle is smaller, 100%. Okay, now the angle is smaller, and if you want regarding the angle of the spotlight is now much larger than the cone of light. So you just have to go in lights parameters and decrease the spread angle so that it corresponds to the shape of your beam. So you can shape your beam like that. You can have a very wide spread angle, and for this you just have to take the parameters of scale and no, sorry, maybe it's gonna be 200 and 200. Okay, does it correspond to the spot? No, it's even more. Let's go to 400 and 400. Okay, and here we're almost there. Maybe you can reduce a little bit the spread angle so that, okay, we are this way. And now if we have a look in the texture shaded, if we see that it is too short, you can drag the scale here this way. Okay, so that is the way to shape your beam. And since I made the start point on the flashlight, you're almost on the flashlight, you just have to check that at the origin of it you're at the right height. So maybe for this one we just have to lower a little bit the height of it, the y-axis, and in order for beams exactly to correspond to the output of the lamp, maybe you have to move it a little bit. Okay, and from top view is the alignment okay. From top view you can drag it a little bit there. Okay, and now if we have a fast render, let's see the render settings. Oh, this is too high, and I take a very high shading rate for renders to be fast during this presentation. Okay, and I'm gonna decrease the shadow samples to 10, 3 and 3 and render. Okay, you see a kind of fake volumetric light in space, and you have shaped it. So now this was how to shape it. Now you can change the intensity of the volumetric light. Let's go for that. So for this, let's take a brand new light in the content library, for instance the white light. Okay, focus on it. I just check that, yes, the beam is well aligned. It's when I scale it that it's misaligned a little bit. Okay, now what can we do with this cone of light? This cone of light has surfaces with 18 materials corresponding to the 18 cones of light. Okay, now you can play with several parameters. First, let's take all of them, and you can change the color. For this, change the ambient color, for instance to green, and your beam will become green. Okay, pink, and you can have a nice pink beam. Okay, that's let's take white once again. Then you can change the opacity of the beam in space. I have a very low opacity of 1%. I would not recognize not to put it too high. If you reduce it, you see the beam much less. Render, fast render. You almost not see it. You see it at the beginning, pretty well at the beginning of the lamp, and not very well at the end of the lamp. If I change the intensity, okay, the color, sorry, okay, you see how it behaves if I change the color. If you increase the opacity strength to 2%, for instance, you see it much better. Okay, it is much stronger. I keep it at 1%. You can also change. It must be higher. You can also, here it is, also change the ambient strength. I have put a very high limit on this parameter, but actually you will always, or almost always, work between 0 and 300%. For instance, if I take 200% for ambient strength and I make a fast render, you begin to see the cones. And if I go too high, okay, and make a render, you see very well the cones of light. This effect can be very annoying, except if you're working at far distances. Okay, at far distances, it allows you not to see the cones anymore. So this ambient strength, you will use it mainly for high distance when you increase it. Okay, if you go very very high, what will happen is that the center will become more and more white. It allows you to play with effects of color being very desaturated in the center and much more saturated on the borders. But this gives you almost a solid, the impression of a solid color chrome. Okay, and if we go to the top and make a render, this is full solid color. Okay, and this becomes white because of the way it is calculated. So let's go to 100%. So this strength is useful when you see the lamp from far. When you're closed and you increase the ambient strength, the problem you have is that you begin to see the cones. You also have a diffuse color that you can play with, and this will add with the ambient color. So here I took the same. Maybe it's not the best idea. If I take green and make a render, you see the diffuse color green is mixing with the ambient color pink, and this gives you a kind of orangish, yeah, maybe orangish beam. So if you want to increase the effect of this, I'm going to take this color, add the custom color, take this one, take my custom color, and now the effect of the two colors are cumulative. Okay, and if I put this to a dark with 0 diffuse strength, you don't see, you just see a kind of grayish grayish beam. It's not okay. Okay, so you have to keep either a white color or a color corresponding to the color of the ambient color, or other colors to mix the effects. For instance, yellow plus blue should give us nothing. Oh, why? Yeah, because it's multiplying. Oh, that's very funny. A little lesson of mathematics. It's multiplying this value by this value, and everything is multiplied by 0. So I have to have something, you see, 255 multiplied by 0 will give you 0. 255 multiplied by 0 will give you 0. And here it's the same. I have the two complementary colors, and so I'm going to take much desaturated colors. And now, and now, and now. Here I still have a 0. I don't want a 0. Yeah. And now you don't multiply anything by 0 and make a render, and that's almost it. That's colorimetry lesson. Yellow multiplied by blue will give you green. Okay, so this is just a game. No, let's go back to the serious things. It's just to show you that you can play with these two parameters to change, to tweak a little bit your colors. Or maybe I'm gonna, here I prefer staying pure white, okay, and remembering that my color here is being affected by this white color. So maybe a blue one. And now I have played with opacity strength globally. What you can do is to change, for instance, here is the center beam. Here is the extreme border beam. So you can, for instance, tell that here you're pink and with a high opacity. And here you're green with an intermediate opacity. And here you're blue, okay, and the three last ones are white. Okay, now let's make a little render to see how this is done, and you see that you have your higher opacity pink beam, and then green, and then you have blue and white on the borders. So you can work with colors and opacity of the lamp globally, or on all intermediate materials. That's why I decided to keep them. So now ambient color is multiple, let's make it single. Okay, and opacity strength is multiple, let's put it at 1% once again. If I increase too much the opacity, what's happening is that you don't have the impression anymore that it's light, you have the impression that it's a solid thing. So you must, since it is light, you must avoid this fact of having the impression that it is a solid thing. It must remain transparent. Okay. Now, for the ones who want to go a little bit further, I have this scene here where David is the background, is holding a flashlight without volumetric light. That's when I was building this scene that I thought, oh, it's such a pity not to see a light beam, not to see a volumetric light, and that's why I decided to make a fake volumetric light. Now I'm going to show you how to work in this scene, because it's easy to work over a gray background, and in a scene it's not the same, because you have the environment, you have the lights coming from many directions. So I'm going to show you in this scene how to replace this single flash lamp by the one of the fake volumetric flash lamps. So this lamp is parented to David hand. First I'm going to unparent item, it is unparented in place, okay? And I'm going to load this one in the scene. I keep this one selected and go in my parameters and go and copy selected items, and now I make a past pose to selected items. And now, whoo, happy, it's back again in David hands. It allows you not to do again the positioning, the posing of the lamp in its hand. And now I can take the number 2, that's it, and parent it to it's. Oh, there's a lot of people. It must be who's this guy? Oh, sorry, Genesis 2. Okay, so parent to Genesis 2. Just have to find, just have to find him. Genesis 2, and it's the right hand, right thumb, right hand. Okay, now it is parented, and I can delete from my scene the other flashlights. That's it. Okay, now you have this volumetric beam in space, and we have other lights in scene. Can I see the other lights? Okay, we have 3 distant lights and 1 spotlight, at least 3 distant light and 1 spotlight. So now render, I'm going to decrease the render settings 10 and 3 and 3, just to see how it is working. This way. I'm going to take this and see how long it takes. You see, it's not that long to render. It's faking pretty well a volumetric light effect. But you see the borders of the cone. So what if I change my surfaces? So I take the surface here, and I'm gonna select all of them and decrease the opacity strength to 0.75%. Okay, and now make a fast render once again. This is very fast. This is not a good quality render. This is just to have a look on how it behaves and when you feel it is okay for your scene. So this is pretty fine because you still see that there is light beam, but you don't see the borders of the cone anymore. You can guess it, but you cannot see them. Okay, so this is pretty the result we want to reach. But this is for very bad render settings. Okay, we will need a much more precise render setting. Let's see till the beginning of the lamp. It's pretty okay just by decreasing the opacity strength. You see? Okay. So let's press cancel. All right. And now if we take what are we going to do? In the render settings, I'm going to put a 0.5 shading rate. I won't increase the shadow samples and the pixel samples. The calculus is going to be much longer, and maybe I'm gonna pause the recording of this presentation during the render, because otherwise it will take too long. So render. So now we see it is a much precise render, and I'm gonna pause the recording during this render. Okay, now the render is over, and as you see pretty well the beam in the scene. Okay, but since I decreased the shading rate, you begin to see these little these little stripes of light here. What you have to think is that you make a fast render to see if everything is well placed in your scene. Think that when you make a higher resolution render and with very low shading rates, you might begin to see these little stripes. I think that this is sustainable afterwards. You can still play with ambient and opacity parameters. For instance, I see that the problem is not in the center, it is on the first, second, third, and maybe fourth cone. So I can work on these ones, for instance. Okay, go on surfaces. So the first is the last. No, the first is the first. You can see it. You can see it here. Okay, exterior number 1. So for this one, I'm going to decrease the intensity, the opacity, sorry. This one too, this one too, and this one here. Okay, so the external sides of the cone will be less visible. And should I also change? No, I'm gonna keep the same color settings than for the other ones. And I'm gonna make another render, but this time maybe a smaller image, otherwise it's a little bit too long. And go for the render. And see if this time the external stripes that we saw disappear enough. Okay, it's just to show you the parameters you can play with to reach the perfect beam, knowing that it's not a real beam, so it's never gonna be perfect. And one thing that I also want to mention that I can show you later on is that the spot color is not linked to the beam color. So if you change the color of the spot, think that you have also to change the color of the beam. Okay, I'm not sure I'm going to go to the end of the render, or maybe till we see the full beam. But I think that with these settings, it is okay at this resolution and at this distance and with these render parameters. Okay, that's okay. So here, for instance, the spots, the intensity of the spot on the wall is not at all linked to the cone. It's completely linked to the power of the spot, which is linked to the lamp. Is it near the end? Yes, it is near the end. Okay, so if you want this spot to be less powerful, you just have to go. You just have to select it. If you can select it, select my spot. No, so I'm going to select my lamp and go in scene in order to select my spot. Okay, because it is parented to the lamp. So sometimes it's easier to take the flash lamp and then to go to the spot. Now I'm going in the parameters. And in light parameters, I can decrease the intensity, for instance, to 30%. And if I want, you can even change the color to something less saturated. And you will see that the effect will be completely different. Yeah, I was in perspective view, I think. Yes, I was in perspective view. So now just an area render there. And you see that the spot on the wall is not blue anymore. It is it has become white. Because you can play separately with the color of the spot and the intensity of the spot, and the color of the beam and the intensity, the visibility of the beam in space. But the color of the spot will also affect the color of the beam, because the diffuse value of the beam is not null, is not equal to 0. Okay, so all this is work together. All this work together and gives you a high flexibility on what you want to do. Okay, we don't see the stripes, but this gives a strange impression, because our brain is trained to know that when we see something bluish, a light bluish in space, the projected light should also be bluish. This is why it gives a strange impression. Our brain cannot support everything. Okay, and here you know that there is a bluish light projected. Your brain analyzes like that, it's a bluish light projected, and suddenly, when it reaches the wall, it becomes white. So it is very disturbing for our brain. That's why I would recommend highly to have the same color on for the spots and for the beam of light. And this is done in 3 presets in the props of that I have included in my product. Okay, let's press cancel. I think we have seen what we wanted to see. This is down here in the content library. You have 3 colors. So the white is for standard lamp. You can, if you want, reuse this, for instance, for weapons. Projecting lights in war scenes, and these blue lights are to simulate the police, the forensics blue lights used in order to detect blood with luminol on walls or everywhere. So I think that's all for this presentation. If you have questions, I'll open the topic on DAZ forum. And I hope that you will have a lot of fun with these lamps now that you see how they are working. Thanks a lot for watching this little presentation, and have a nice day, everyone.